Right, so anti-Semitism is apparently over in the Labour Party, so says Keir Starmer. But I have a hard time believing that in light of a BBC interview with right-winger and ardent Starmer supporter Ruth Anderson, formerly known as Ruth Smeeth, of course. She's gone back to using her maiden name before Starmer stuffed her into the House of Lords. I'll come back to that in a moment. The context of this, though, is that Jewish Voice for Labour, one of the Labour-connected Jewish bodies, already sidelined within the Labour Party in favour of Jewish Labour movement, despite JVL members having to be both Labour members and Jewish, and the JLM requiring members to be neither of those things, have kicked off over the findings of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, the EHRC, by saying the clean bill of health they have given Labour now means it is no longer a safe place to be Jewish and left-wing. They have called the news alarming, and they feel they have been ignored by the EHRC since they have been submitting reports since the middle of 2021 to them regarding the disproportionate attacks on Jewish members happening under Starmer's leadership, the targeting of them for disciplinary action over anti-Semitism. Yes, if you're Jewish in Starmer's Labour, you're more likely to be accused of anti-Semitism than anyone else. You're more likely to be purged than pretty much anyone else. More Jewish members have been expelled under Starmer than any other Labour leader ever. If anything, the EHRC has taken the stance that the more people that are being purged, the better, since this somehow is implying the problem is being fixed. It's downright disturbing, frankly, that the Equalities and Human Rights Commission feel this is something that can be gotten rid of when all forms of racism are pervasive societal ills and they don't just get fixed. They get fought and dealt with in an ongoing basis each and every time they come up, because they always do. They always will. There's always another case, sadly, down the road to be addressed. According to Jewish Voice for Labour, a full Jewish member of the JVL is 37 times more likely to be investigated for anti-Semitism than an ordinary Labour member. They are 54 times more likely to be expelled for anti-Semitism than an ordinary Labour member. They are 63 times more likely to be auto-excluded, the term being used for those retrospective expulsions for having once talked to a banned or proscribed group that Starmer later had proscribed or banned, than an ordinary Labour member. And a JVL Executive Committee member is 462 times more likely to be auto-excluded. This isn't about anti-Semitism, this is about purging the left, because the JVL are largely left-wing as opposed to the JLM, who are Starmer's faction. How the EHRC have managed to ignore this is beyond me, but blatantly it tells me they are not fit for purpose, or their own remit has been more about exonerating Starmer and putting the issue of anti-Semitism to bed. The can of worms the right wing of Labour, the mainstream media, the establishment talking heads opened to beat down on Corbyn now needs closing, because actually they don't give a damn. They just want to draw a line under it now. It was all about battering Jeremy Corbyn, and going forwards, it's a message to those supported of him, like the JVL, being dealt with in the same manner by effectively designating progressive or socialist Jewish political traditions as anti-Semitic themselves. The EHRC have given their seal of approval to that. They clearly think they can get away with that too, given Ruth Anderson's disgusting comments to the BBC. She was asked about the JVL comments, that they found this news alarming, that Jews like them do not feel safe in Keir Starmer's Labour Party. They said in some Labour constituencies where Jews do not support Israel and who continue to support former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, they have become too frightened to attend party meetings for fear of intimidation and abuse. Anderson was then asked directly, "Is your message to them tough?" Anderson shrugged her shoulders and said, basically, yes. Let that sink in for a moment. She said Jewish Voice for Labour is a minute, tiny organisation. Much of their leadership has been expelled from the Labour Party because of their beliefs about other Jews, and they have said appalling and abhorrent things and candidly have made my life a misery when I was a member of Parliament because of their indulgence in conspiracy theories and racism. So I think this is a fringe group. I don't think they're worthy of your comment or mine, but I don't want anyone to feel unsafe in the Labour Party. But you've got to consider why you're a member of an organisation and whether they share your values. And if you're a member of an organisation that is separate to the Labour Party, that thinks that anti-Semitism was overplayed, that has outlined it as smears, attacks other Jews, and I've got to consider why you would want to be in the Labour Party in the first place. Lots to unpack there. None of it nice, and the EHRC needs to damn well watch it and take note. I have to say, every time I watch that smug response, my blood boils. People who are Jewish and afraid to go to meetings in case they face intimidation and abuse should just suck it up, should they? People don't necessarily go to those meetings with a big neon sign above their heads going, Jewish Voice for Labour member here, with an A4 piece of paper taped to their back saying, kick me, do they? These are, to all intents and purposes, just ordinary Jewish members asking for their opinions and views to be heard in the safe space a meeting should be, and not getting it. The inclusivity and comradeliness that should be present has given way to abuse and disproportionately leads to expulsion. If that isn't anti-Semitic, if Anderson's attitude doesn't constitute that same contempt and show Labour is absolutely not the safe space for Jews claimed, I don't know what is. And the blatancy she said it with, on the BBC at that, shows they absolutely believe they'll get away with it. JVL is a tiny organisation, is it? But if they're so insignificant, how did one of their founders get elected to the Labour Party National Executive Committee? Then it kind of proves their point about being disproportionately targeted when Starmer made sure Naomi Wimborne-Idrisi got expelled in short order, preventing her from ever taking her place on that committee. Leaving the Jewish representation to the non-Jewish Zionist types on the NEC, like Luke Akehurst, eh? And of course, she couldn't resist making it about herself, saying they'd abused her. But in which case, she's hardly an impartial voice to respond to the JVL's concerns, is she? Given her dismissiveness of ordinary Jewish members' concerns, I'd not be inclined to take her at her word anyway. But when you consider her actions once falsely had Labour black rights activist Mark Wadsworth expelled for actions he didn't commit at the launch of the Chakrabarty report in 2016 into racism and anti-Semitism, all it did was distract from the reason for being there and, of course, dominated the news agenda. Ruth Anderson, or Smeeth, whatever you care to call her, has built a career out of being the victim. But now that other Jewish Labour members are speaking out about their victimisation, her response to them is apparently just hard shit. She said, I don't think they are worthy of your comment or mine, to the BBC interviewer. Some Jews are more equal than others, then. That line alone should finish her. If she were still an MP, I'm not sure she'd have been so bold. But being in the unelected House of Lords now, she's basically safe, isn't she? Nothing to condemn her from Starmer, nothing from the EHRC. That sentence in my mind is blatantly anti-Semitic, and everything she has said there proves the point the JVL have been making. Labour is not a safe space for Jews anymore. And it's the weaponisation of the anti-Semitism debate to bring down Corbyn that has made it like that has done so much harm against the real fight, against the real thing.